Louisiana Legends is made possible by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. This important program series enables us to discover, through the accomplishments of our fellow Louisianians, the unique character of a state so proudly served by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana for 60 years.
In 1995, United States Senator Bennett Johnston shocked the political world, particularly the political world in Louisiana, when he announced that he was calling it a day on a political career that extended some 32 years. And we're very honored today that we're in the Senate offices with Senator Johnston. Bennett, nice to be with you.
Thank you, Gus. Good to be with you.
Bennett, that decision, that monumental decision wherein a man puts closure on what has been his life outside of his family, how did you ever reach it, and when did you begin to think about it?
Honestly, it was a very quick decision, and it was brought on by virtue of the fact that we just started a new Congress. It was January the 6th, as I recall, and we got out the calendars to plan the year. And I began to realize I was going to have to be gone, about 50 or 52 weekends. Was going to have to go all over the country raising money, was going to have to spend a very intense time. And it occurred to me that I better make a decision at that point as to whether I was going to run for re-election, not wait till about a year out as most candidates do. And so we sat down, my wife, my family, and me, and it all sort of became clear this is the right time to move on, to start something else, to make a new start in life doing something else. After 32 years of being in elected political office, it is going to be a vast change, and it's a nostalgic sort of thing.
Of course.
I mean, it's like graduating from college. You want to graduate, you finish that chapter of your life, but then you look around the campus and you think of all the good times you've had, all the friends you've made, and they're haunting feelings that you're sure going to miss it. And I'm sure I will miss the Senate.
Senator, it all started for you in Shreveport, Louisiana. You were born there, I think went to Byrd High, and spent some time in the military academy. Came out, I think, got your degree from LSU?
LSU Law School
Yes,
in
sir.
1956.
So you're a young lawyer in Shreveport, doing all the right things, member of the Chamber of Commerce, etc. When did this bug that bites so many Louisianians, when did it bite you and say, run for office?
Oh, Gus, I was president of the freshman class in high school and was in political office all through high school, and it was something that was always there. I always knew I was going to run. It was just the question is, how quickly could I run? I got back from the Army in September of 1959 and really wanted to run for state representative at that time, but the race was already half over. I mean, you know, the election was going to be the very next month, so I couldn't do that. I had to wait for 4 years, but I've always wanted to be in politics. And I used to tell wife Mary when we were courting at LSU 40 years ago that I wanted to be in the United States Senate. So I'm one of those rare individuals who has realized his dream, who has done exactly what he wanted to do.
Very rare.
If I had it to do over again, and you we turned back the clock to 1972, and you said, Bennett, you can be a Wall Street mogul, be worth $100 million, you can be a movie star, you can do all these other things, or you can be in the United States Senate for 24 years. What would you choose? With the benefit of hindsight, I would choose the Senate. It is what I have wanted to do, what I have gotten so much satisfaction from doing.
You ran for governor against Edwin Edwards as a member of the legislature, as was he, and he beat you by 4,400 votes. I think it was that close. The race wasn't realized till around 11 o'clock at night. It was a nightmare race from your standpoint. How did that loss affect you? Did it stop you? Did it slow you down? Did it knock you to the ground for a little while?
Not really, because that governor's race was very surreal to me. I was out there working hard month after month, trailing the pack, I guess, by 60 days out. I remember an article in one of the New Orleans papers saying that I was running sixth. I knew I wasn't running sixth, but my progress was indeed very fast. And then to make it in the second primary, you know, when I got into the second primary, it was the general feeling that I was going to win. And indeed, I had two polls, one 2 weeks in and one 2 weeks out, that showed I was winning by 14 points.
Wow.
And,
oh goodness!
And I thought it was clear, and so we started playing safe football, you know, where you just take the ball and down it, and you don't run with it, and that probably did us in. We were probably it's not that we were overconfident, we just didn't.
It was there.
Yeah, it was there, and we didn't want to take any chances. But it was, we became the leading candidate and then lost all in such a short period of time that I didn't have time to really think of being disappointed. And indeed, within just a few weeks, we were running for the United States Senate. So in a sense, it was a beginning rather than an end.
That Senate race was actually therapeutic to come on the heels of...
One of the best days of my life was when I got into the airplane to fly to New Orleans on, I think it was March the 1st, 1972, to start the campaign for the Senate, get back on the campaign trail. I mean, it was, I had hated being out of politics for those, I wasn't really out for those 2 or 3 months between the election and when I started running, but it was, I was not campaigning. So
there was no time to mourn, in effect.
No time to mourn, and I was in it right away.
You mentioned your wife, Mary, the former Mary Gunn of Shreveport. What's the kind of career you've had been like on a family, a wife, a marriage, kids? Has to be brutal.
It has been difficult but great. Difficult in the sense that she's had to do things that a lot of wives would not have to do, put up with my absences, you know, gone weekend after weekend campaigning. So she had to raise the kids on her own. Not that I was gone that much. We tried to make up with it with vacations where we would go away to some place for 2 weeks or 10 days or whatever, and just be together as a family. And we were able to compensate in that respect. But it has the very great things about being in the Senate. People you get to meet, places you get to go. She's traveled the world, and the marriage has come through very well.
We're
going to be celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary in August of this year.
And you have how many children?
Got 4 and 5.5 grandchildren.
5.5 grandkids. Senator, were you ever tempted, once ascending to the United States Senate, were you ever tempted, strongly tempted, to run for governor again? Because I think several times there you would have been the leading candidate.
Well, we thought about it at a time or two, but not seriously until 1995, and then very seriously thought about it. A lot of my good friends really, you know, put it to me that, Bennett, this is your time to run.
Yes,
the state needs you, et cetera, and we very seriously looked at it. I made a 50-town tour of the state, really to find out whether it was there, and took an in-depth poll, and I was satisfied based on what I'd learned that I could have won. I mean, the winning part of it was not a factor. I thought it was there. But at the end of the day, I figured I just didn't want it enough. You've got to really want it to be governor, and I just didn't have the fire in the belly enough to go back and
Senator, that wear and tear, the average citizen has no concept of what it's like to go beg for money, which in effect, whether you're running for President of the United States or the United States Senate, or police juror from Poincapé Parish, that's an integral part of that political life.
Well, you know, interestingly enough, I was sort of looking forward to the campaign. As a matter of fact, had I been able to run and serve for about 6 months, I think I would have done it, because the race would have been a lot of fun. I know how to run. It's a discipline. You get into it. We had very talented people on our staff, who would have helped me put together a good race. The money was there, and I just didn't want to serve for, I think it would have been realistically 8 years.
Senator, as we talk today in your office here in the Hart Office Building, what do you feel, and there have been so many, are your major accomplishments for the people in the state of Louisiana?
Gus, I've been on the Appropriations Committee. I got a strategy to get on the Appropriations Committee early on and made it there with Russell Long's help within 2 years from the time I came, because I knew we had a poor state that needed everything. We needed, we're vulnerable to floods, and so we need a lot of levee work. We need dredging for our rivers. We need navigation help. We need jobs of all kinds. We need everything for our universities. So I set out to get those things. I-49 was an outgrowth of the toll road legislation, which I sponsored. It runs parallel to the Red River Waterway Project, $1.9 billion project, which is going to revolutionize the Red River Valley. I can look at Barksdale Air Force Base in Shreveport, the Biomedical Research Institute in Shreveport. You can go to
and Baton Rouge.
Yeah, you go to tech, to the micro manufacturing. Go to LSU with the CAMD, Center for Micro Devices.
I think I should note, just so people know the enormity of the Senator's very real contributions, that he created some 5 major national research centers at universities throughout the state. To me, that's just mind-boggling. And Louisiana needed those things desperately, and do today.
Well, we've got to start on high technology now. And I've been able to do those things all over the state, and have spent an enormous amount of time and effort. It is interesting to me that you read sometimes in the Louisiana papers about that this is controversial, what I've done. How it could be controversial to help your state, to bring to it educational advantages, to bring to it jobs, things like navigation projects. How that could be the slightest bit controversial escapes me, particularly when you think of Louisiana as being, we're sort of a developing state.
Yes, sir.
We all love Louisiana deeply and see its huge possibilities, and see it's the great things about it that we have right now, but the room to improve, particularly economically, is very vast. And it seems to me that everyone in political office and in positions of leadership ought to be out trying to develop that state, because it's got such capabilities, such possibilities.
Let me ask you a question from left field. If you were running for governor today of Louisiana, what would you see as the agenda necessary to move the state still forward, still more forward?
I think I would try to affect the mindset of people in Louisiana. I think there is too much willingness to go along with mediocrity in education. I mean, we've got to move the state forward in education because, look, as the world develops, as modern technology takes over, brain power is so much more important. And we're seeing, of course, the middle class squeezed and the lower class growing, and the upper class, the meritocracy, those who are at the top of the heap, are doing very, very well. And pressures in that direction will continue because the value of education, the value of skills, of what you know, is so much more important than it ever was. And that would be what I would try to do as governor. And along with it, try to develop the job base of the state. That's why I wanted to put in the CAMD in Baton Rouge, the Pennington Research Center. You know, we've got a research center, you know, in Lafayette now, at
It's,
USL.
You kind of pushed Louisiana into the high-tech age.
That's right.
Yeah. Senator, that nightmare process for the citizenry, wherein that congressional committee or that committee considers what military installations to close within a state, which means life and death to the economy of certain parts of the state. How have we fared in that gruesome process?
Well, I think fairly well. We were terribly disappointed when England Air Force Base was closed in Alexandria. But as luck would have it, and as our preparations would have it, we made plans to use England Air Force Base as a job base, as a job attractor. And so it happened that we didn't lose anything by the closure. Sales tax collections continued to go up, real estate values held up, the job base held up. So in that sense, what we lost turned out not to be the loss we thought, but indeed may in the long run, I think in the long run, will be a plus. Fort Polk is the whole key to western Louisiana, and it could not close without just leaving economic devastation in its path.
Was that a fight to keep it intact?
Oh, it's been a constant fight.
Is that right?
As we speak right now, I have a bill which just passed in the Senate, it's not passed the whole Congress yet, to make available 85,000 acres of the Kisatchie National Forest for maneuver room. The Army has had an in-depth study, said they need that, and without it, frankly, I fear that Fort Polk would be liable to closure in the future. You know, a lot of people say, well, gosh, we need more study, you know, these are people who oppose it. But we can't take a chance with Fort Polk. It's too key, it's too important to all of western Louisiana. We've been very fortunate at Barksdale. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, I have seen to it every year that everything that Barksdale needed, from the fast filling pumps, you know, so you can fill those B-52s quickly with fuel, to the runways, the aprons, the buildings. We've got a $100 million improvement program for Barksdale, which is more than half complete now. So Barksdale is now the jewel of the Air Force, and I think we are very confident that that base will not close, at least not as far as the eye can see.
The job of United States Senator, the importance of it from a standpoint of the people of a state, was brought home to me when you reached out and helped an Indian tribe in South Louisiana get something good for their way of life. And I realized we don't think of it in those terms, but that senator is almost a lifeline between the government, its purses, its power, and the people.
United States Senate is a very powerful position, particularly if used properly and energetically for the people. And that's why I'm looking very carefully at these candidates and hoping that they'll not only say the right things, but when we do elect a senator to succeed me, that he or she will do the right thing. And I'm hopeful that that's going to be so.
If you had to draw a plan for the kind of person who ought to come to this place and do the job that you've done and are doing, what kind of person would you design? What attributes should he or she possess? And we are about to be in the midst of a 15-candidate race to succeed you.
Well, I would obviously, you'd want someone who's well educated, very bright, who's a good politician. And by the way, I don't use the word politician in a derisive way. I think politics is the finest calling that you can do. Yeah, I mean, look, this is democracy. You don't do democracy without politics. So I'd want a good politician, someone who can relate to people well, both up here and back home. I would want someone reasonably young. You know, it's all right. I mean, I'm young enough to serve in the United States Senate and to get elected to it, but it's not really, you don't want to really start a career. I think it was optimum what I did at age 40 to start the United States Senate. and some of my colleagues have started even earlier than that. And I think that's great. It's a place, you know, when first elected to the United States Senate, almost everyone comes up here not knowing very much, really not knowing how this place works, how the country works, and you have to study it. This is the greatest university in the world. These hearings we have, these are where you have people come up and testify. It's like teaching. And it takes you a while to learn that. So I'd like to have someone reasonably young and bright, and who is, in terms of philosophy, someone who's dedicated to helping the state. I'd rather have someone who's dedicated to helping the state than someone who's dedicated to getting headlines.
And that ability to get along with other senators must be some important quality.
It is vital. Very much moves up here on personal relationships. Well, it does all over the world and every other endeavor, so why not the United States Senate? And it is true that you can frequently get something done because someone is a friend and trusts you and you have a relationship with them. And conversely, a lot of things die because they had some ill will somewhere with someone.
Very human business.
Very human.
Senator, what will you do once you have left the office?
Gus, I'm a lawyer by trade, and I expect to have some kind of law office. I'd like to be between Louisiana and Washington. That depends on how I organize myself. My son is also a lawyer, and I expect to be with him. But the answer is we don't know yet because we've held off any serious negotiations with any firm because you don't want to have a conflict of interest.
How much time do you think you'll be able to spend in Louisiana?
That really depends. I hope a lot. That depends on clients. When I used to practice law way back when, before I came up here, I knew at that time that what you did and where you did it depended more on your clients than it did on you.
Yes.
And but I expect that I will have a lot of time in Louisiana. Hope to and expect to.
Senator, we're doing this program today. We're going to do it in two parts. And this interview, which we're concluding, was on you and the state of Louisiana. And in our next segment, we're going to talk about you and Washington and this Congress and this city, which now looks like an armed camp. To me, a layman, you can no longer approach any government building. The world has changed, hasn't it?
It has changed dramatically, and in many respects, not for the good.
No, sir. Would you suppose you could be given the opportunity to start over this exact career in 1996? Would that have appeal for you to start fresh here in Washington? Is it the world that you want to? Is it still the world that is particularly interesting and good for you?
Yes, if I were age 40 now, and they would tell me that you could have a 24-year career in the United States Senate or do something else, yes, I would come here, even though it is not as much fun as it used to be, and even though there are a lot of difficult things about it, yes, I would come because it is an unparalleled opportunity to be involved in the most interesting things with the most interesting people and where you can make the biggest difference of anything you can do. There is absolutely nothing anyone can do where you can achieve more for more people than you can in politics.
Well, Senator, on behalf of Louisiana Public Broadcasting, and more specifically Louisiana Legends, now and it's going on 16 years, I thank you, and we'll be back to talk with you probably next week or maybe in a moment about Bennett Johnston and Washington, D.C. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gus.
I am today announcing that I will terminate my Senate service at the end of this term. I will not seek re-election in 1996.
His service will be a shining monument to that type of attitude about what public service is all about.
be a really good senator, a person needs to have the traits of a school teacher. You need to be able to first understand something and then explain it to others. And Bennett was very good at that. I would say he was one of the greatest senators of all time.
Louisiana Legends is made possible by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. This important program series enables us to discover, through the accomplishments of our fellow Louisianians, the unique character of a state so proudly served by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana for 60 years.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or send $19.95 to Louisiana Legends, care of Louisiana Public Broadcasting, 7860 Anselmo Lane, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70810. Please allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery.